For most of my life, I faced dangers that most people only ever witness on a movie screen. I served in places where every decision could mean the difference between life and death. I looked fear straight in the eye more times than I can count and never once backed down. Yet despite everything I endured during my years in uniform, nothing could prepare me for the battle waiting for me in a quiet suburban neighborhood. And the person leading that battle was a woman named Brenda. After completing my military service, I finally returned home for good. My body carried the weight of years spent overseas, but my determination remained unshaken. I wanted a fresh start, something that represented all the sacrifices I had made and the future I planned to build. So I rewarded myself with a dream purchase, a brand new Lamborghini valued at more than $300,000. To anyone else, it might look like an expensive sports car, but to me it symbolized survival, hard work, and a second chance at life. I purchased a house in a peaceful gated community, convinced it would be the perfect place to settle down and enjoy some long overdue quiet. Unfortunately, that peace didn't last very long. Living next door was Brenda, the unofficial ruler of the Homeowners Association. From the moment I moved in, she seemed determined to find fault with everything I did. If my grass grew even slightly higher than everyone else's, she complained. If my garbage bins remained visible for a few extra minutes after pickup day, she complained about that too. And my Lamborghini? She absolutely despised it. According to her, the car was too flashy, too expensive, and completely inappropriate for the neighborhood. Every few days, I would discover another passive-aggressive note tucked beneath the windshield wiper. One note read, "This isn't a racetrack." Another said, "Some residents actually value peace and quiet." The funny thing was that I always followed the rules. I drove carefully through the neighborhood. I never accelerated aggressively. I never revved the engine unnecessarily. I wasn't trying to show off. I simply wanted to enjoy the car I had earned and live my life in peace. Whenever I crossed paths with Brenda, I treated her with the same courtesy I had shown superior officers throughout my military career. I'd offer a polite nod, listen respectfully, and avoid confrontation whenever possible. But no matter how cooperative I was, it never seemed to satisfy her. Deep down, I got the feeling she wanted me out of the neighborhood entirely. Everything came to a head on a bright Saturday afternoon. I was sitting inside my home, carefully cleaning and organizing my service medals, when a horrible noise shattered the silence. First came a heavy crunch, then a long, painful scraping sound, like metal being dragged across concrete. The instant I heard it, a wave of dread rushed through me. I bolted for the front door and sprinted outside. The sight that greeted me nearly stopped my heart. Standing beside my Lamborghini was Brenda. Her face carried a look that bordered on unhinged satisfaction. In her hands were 2 large cinder blocks. The damage was catastrophic. The hood had been crushed inward. The windshield was covered in a web of fractures stretching from edge to edge. Along the driver's side was a deep gouge that ran nearly the entire length of the vehicle. It was obvious what she had done. She had deliberately dragged one of the cinder blocks across the flawless paint, carving through it and destroying the finish. "What have you done?" I asked. To my own surprise, my voice remained calm. It was the kind of calm that exists right before a storm breaks. Years of military training took over automatically. Instead of reacting emotionally, I focused on the facts. Brenda responded with a sneer. "Maybe this will teach you a lesson," she said. "Your flashy lifestyle doesn't belong in this neighborhood. That car is a nuisance, and honestly, so are you. Maybe now you'll finally decide to leave." I didn't yell back. I didn't threaten her. Instead, I took out my phone and began recording everything. First, I filmed the extensive damage to the Lamborghini. Then I recorded the cinder blocks lying beside the car. Finally, I pointed the camera directly at Brenda. For the first time, her confidence seemed to falter. "Brenda," I said evenly, "you've just made the biggest mistake of your life." I continued recording while speaking. "You've intentionally destroyed property worth more than $300,000. You vandalized my vehicle because you personally dislike me and the way I live." The color immediately began draining from her face. I run the HOA," she stammered. "I'll have you removed from this community." I couldn't help laughing. It was a short, cold laugh. You really think your HOA gives you that kind of authority? I asked, you honestly believe you can intimidate me? I took a single step forward. For the first time since I had moved into the neighborhood, Brenda looked directly into my eyes and seemed to realize she might have misjudged the situation completely. For the first time, I saw a genuine fear flicker across Brenda's face. She was no longer looking at the quiet man next door who always kept to himself. She was seeing the soldier beneath the surface, the veteran who had spent years facing real danger and impossible situations. Brenda, I said calmly, I've dealt with people far more threatening than you, and they had a lot more power than you do. Compared to them, you're nothing. A few minutes later, police sirens echoed through the neighborhood. The moment the officers arrived, Brenda switched tactics. Tears suddenly appeared. Her voice trembled as she pointed at me and spun a story about how I had intimidated her. She claimed I had threatened her safety and insisted my sports car endangered every child in the community. Unfortunately for her, facts are stubborn things. The video on my phone clearly showed the damage, the cinder blocks, and her own behavior. Combined with my calm attitude, it completely dismantled her version of events. The officers remained professional throughout the investigation, but I could see the disbelief on their faces as they examined the wrecked Lamborghini. The destruction was impossible to ignore. As they placed Brenda in the back of a patrol vehicle, her husband came rushing from their house in a panic. He looked completely overwhelmed. I'm so sorry, he said repeatedly. Please don't press charges. She didn't mean for this to happen. Sometimes she just gets carried away. I stared at him for a long moment. Carried away? I repeated. Then I pointed toward the mangled remains of my car. Your wife caused tens of thousands of dollars in damage. She may have completely destroyed a vehicle worth over $300,000. That isn't getting carried away. That's a felony. The following weeks disappeared into a whirlwind of insurance adjusters, attorneys, reports, and court documents. Meanwhile, Brenda's carefully controlled world began collapsing around her. She was now facing serious criminal charges. The Homeowners Association, horrified by both her behavior and the legal consequences that could follow, wasted no time distancing themselves from her. She was stripped of her position almost immediately. Her authority vanished overnight. The financial consequences hit just as hard. Between legal expenses and initial restitution costs, her husband was forced to take out a second mortgage on their home just to stay afloat. But the true turning point came several weeks later. By then, the story had spread throughout the local community. A television reporter picked it up and decided to investigate further. While researching the incident, they also looked into my background. Soon a feature aired about a decorated veteran whose luxury car had been destroyed by a hostile neighbor. The report highlighted my military service, the commendations I had earned, and the deployments I had completed over the years. Instead of portraying me as the arrogant troublemaker Brenda had claimed I was, the story showed something entirely different. It presented me as a veteran who had returned home after years of service and simply wanted a peaceful life. According to another neighbor, Brenda and her husband watched the report together. When they did, the reality of what had happened finally sank in. The man they had targeted wasn't just someone with money and an expensive vehicle. He was someone who had sacrificed years of his life serving his country. He was respected by people throughout the community. And now thousands of viewers were seeing him as the victim of a petty campaign of harassment. For the first time, Brenda understood the full scale of her mistake. She hadn't simply picked a fight with a neighbor she disliked. She had declared war on someone who had spent years fighting real battles. And she had lost in the most public and humiliating way imaginable. Her reputation never recovered. Her finances were devastated. And she now had to stand before a judge who had likely read the same glowing article about the veteran whose life she had tried to make miserable. The last update I heard was that Brenda accepted a plea agreement. Part of that agreement required enormous restitution payments that would follow her for many years to come. Eventually, she and her husband were forced to sell their house and leave the neighborhood altogether. As for my Lamborghini, the insurance company ultimately declared a total loss and paid out its full insured value. I eventually bought another one. This time, I chose a different color. I also decided to move somewhere else entirely. Now I live in a place where mornings begin with birds singing instead of neighborhood drama. A place where peace isn't something I have to fight for. A place where I finally found a quiet life I have been searching for all along. And Brenda? She learned a lesson she'll probably never forget. Never underestimate the quiet person standing beside you. You have no idea what battles they've already survived or how many victories they've already earned. Thanks for listening to my story. If you ever had a difficult neighbor or a similar experience, share it in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stick around for more. Until next time, take care